Hey guys, it's Kay from KS Anonymous, and I am back today with another episode of r/PettyRevenge. Tables of karma turned as I willfully, gladly wrecked her life by denying her tenure. Welcome to Japan! This happened in Japan, so a lot won't make sense unless you have experience living here. Thus, I had to provide a lot of details to enlighten you, my readers. Please bear this in mind. I worked as an assistant language teacher, foreign English teacher, at a public Japanese junior high school in the early 2000s. This was a yearly contract, limited to 5 years, and the first year was a probation period. When hired, the hiring official at the Board of Education told me this was a formality, do a good job, be friendly to the kids, and my contract would easily be extended. Basically, everyone was rehired. This job involved accompanying 6 Japanese English teachers to their classes, modeling correct English pronunciation, and working as their assistant teacher. Among the 6 teachers, one was a department head, and she set my schedule, deciding which periods I worked and the teachers I assisted. In the beginning, I didn't know anything structure-wise about the Japanese school system, the teachers' backgrounds, etc. I just knew that I was the lowest guy on the totem pole, and I worked for these teachers. After some time, one of the Japanese English teachers casually mentioned to me that she had tenure. I had assumed that all of the teachers had tenure, but several of the Japanese English teachers were also on yearly contracts, including the department head who was filling in for a tenured teacher, the original department head, on maternity leave. I thought this was a little strange, but in my eyes, I didn't see that this teacher did anything extra other than making my weekly schedule. I knew that she was around my age and had been a teacher for a few years. Remember that. There was a lot of strangeness I discovered while working, such as many of the teachers, tenured and non, only had associate degrees, to include this acting department head. So this was Japan, and they did things differently. Strange, but whatever. I will admit I was very naive. Some important details to know at this point. My position, no tenure possible, work 5 years, move on. The Japanese yearly contract teachers also had a 5-year limit, but if they passed the national teachers exam, they would earn tenure. They had to pass this exam within 5 attempts, 5 years. Also an important detail. Again, I didn't know these latter details at the time. I had been working there for about 6 months, and one day I'm walking to class with the acting department head. She mentions to me that she heard how much the assistant language teachers make. There were 10 of us scattered at various schools in the city. I prefer not to talk about such matters, so I nodded and listened. That is a lot of money for only 6 hours a day. My contract. It ended there. Note, all of the Japanese teachers, tenured or not, typically worked 10-hour days, often more. At this point, it is March. The school year has ended and the new school year starts in April. The Board of Ed calls to notify me that I need to come in and discuss my contract for the next school year. I went to this meeting with confidence. Arriving in the office, I am met by 3 to 4 stern-looking officials, and they inform me that my evaluation submitted by the school was unsatisfactory, and that the school recommended that I not be rehired by the board. Stunned is an understatement. More details emerged, comments from the evaluation such as bad attitude, unfriendly, not a team player, none of it justified. I asked who submitted the eval and they told me the department head, but the input was from all the English teachers. My explanations to these accusations were going nowhere, so I finally pleaded for them to call the school and individually ask the remaining teachers of their evaluations. I sincerely believed I had good relations with all of the teachers. Rather than firing me on the spot, which they were planning, they agreed and only mentioned they would get back to me. A few days passed, and I was cleared by the Board of Ed for another year. They simply said that there was a misunderstanding, and they apologized. Arriving back at the school in April, a few English teachers who had worked there the previous school year explained that they had submitted all positive notes to the department head, but the department head obviously did not submit those. This teacher had also moved on to another school, as the teacher on maternity leave, the original department head, had returned, so I had no chance to directly confront her. A few years passed without incident. I changed schools, and I now worked in the prefecture capital. I was asked by the prefectural board if I would like to proctor the national teachers' exams on a Saturday for extra cash. I agreed. The other foreign teachers and I had to sit as the primary interviewers for the interview portion of the exam and grade their exam essays. The interviewing team consisted of 3 people, myself and 2 school principals who didn't speak English. I had a list of about 50 questions. About half were extremely easy, such as why do you want to be a teacher, and some that were quite difficult. How do you cultivate positive relationships with your students and create a sense of class community? I honestly don't remember the exact questions, only that about half were easy, half were difficult, even difficult if you were interviewing in your native tongue. I ran the entire interviews for all applicants that day. The principals just sat and marked scores. I tended to shy away from the difficult questions because I had at this point worked for nearly 3 years and knew the English level of most teachers. It was usually pretty basic. When the applicants had left the room, the principals asked for my ratings for the questions I asked. The scoring was a simple 1 to 10 rating. If I said 10, they circled 10, 1, they circled 1, and so forth. They officially recorded the scores, but solely relied on my judgment, no questions asked. There were about 20 applicants I had to interview that day. The interviews were quick, and I didn't take note of the names until applicants walked in. As I am looking down reading the next applicant's name, I pause, and then the door closes. As I look up, I see the applicant's face turn from confidence to dread. The tables had turned. My former department head boss sits, and I got to it, choosing only the difficult questions that had no business being on that exam. She didn't have a chance. The interview concludes, she leaves, and the principal asks for my rating. 1, 1, 1, etc. down the line, and they circled. After the interviews, I also had the great pleasure of grading all of the essays of the same applicants I had interviewed. Have you ever heard that essay grading is subjective? Well, I'll let that question hang. She definitely didn't pass the national teachers exam that year, and I do believe that the year I graded her interview and essay was likely year 5, her last attempt. So there was a bit of commentary in the comment section on Reddit, and they were talking about how in Japan a lot of times it comes down to one person's perspective. So if someone in an authority kind of position doesn't like you, you can pretty much kiss your job goodbye. And from my watching of Japanese dramas, I feel like I feel like this is pretty correct. It sounds like that's kind of what was happening here. And it's quite interesting that this person really got to be in such a position of power over this other individual. Now, I was thinking because of this person not being native to Japan, that the reason for their 5-year contract and the no tenure option was because you're not allowed to live in Japan for over a certain amount of years unless you're married, from my understanding. I think there are some exceptions with work contracts, but usually I really thought it was 3 or 5 years that you have to go back home or basically just leave the country, and then you can come back and establish residency again as long as you're approved, from my understanding. I don't know, that could have changed. I could be wrong, but that's what I was thinking. But apparently the teachers also only have 5 years. Again, also I think that's interesting about the associates thing at this point now, because there are more people who are able to teach English and such. From my understanding, you have to have a bachelor's degree as a foreign language teacher. If you just come in and you're just like, English is my first language and I'd like to teach it to you guys, I'm pretty sure now you do have to have a bachelor's. I believe it used to be you could kind of get by on an associate's as long as you were fluent in English as your first language, but I don't think that's the case anymore. Anyway, that's just some random information from me. I'm a little conflicted because, like, she only almost made her lose her job, you know what I mean? Versus absolutely making sure that this person couldn't be a teacher. But I don't know. What do y'all think about this one? Nursing undergrad. Didn't know I'm a registered nurse. A good friend of mine gave birth via C-section. Her baby got an infection and had to be in NICU. It was a public hospital, Philippines, and patients watchers were allowed even in ICU. Her husband was with her as she was wheeled in her room. They asked me to watch over her son in NICU. I am a registered nurse, and they have no close relative they could ask right away. At the NICU, 3 infants were there. Baby 1 was with the young mother, baby 2 with the grandma, and baby 3 with me. I noticed my baby 3's intravenous line is not dripping at the drip chamber. Tried to look if the line was twisted that may cause it. Baby 1 mom went over to me and started rolling the control clamp. I stopped her immediately. Stop doing that, please. Only nurses here can regulate that. She turned her butt around and sat down in her seat. She sure was pretty ticked and turned to the baby 2 grandma. You know, I was a 2nd-year nursing student in the popular nursing school here. You must be very knowledgeable about this. Maybe referring to the IV incident. Yeah, I will go back to school once my baby turns 3. I just ignored them and went to the nurse's station, asked to regulate the IV. I didn't stand up for myself as it might come out that I'm bragging. A few minutes later, the pediatrician came in with baby 3's dad. Who is watching the baby? He or she should know how to watch a sick baby. Yes, she's a nurse. I'm sure my baby is well taken care of. I stood up and introduced myself. The shocked look on the ladies' faces. One moment they were looking at us, then later their eyes were fixated on their own babies. They can't even look at me. I filled the pedia in on the baby's status. Baby is looking good, no jaundice, febrile, no fever. Meconium, first poop, passed. I used all the possible medical terms I know. Pedia was satisfied and replied a smile. Good thing the baby was in good hands of a nurse. When they left, it was dead silent. I didn't bother to speak and let them know who I am in the first place. I just want to focus on the baby. The baby was back in my friend's room, and I told them what happened. My friend tried to hold back her laughter as she was still in pain from the surgery. They told me I did well and let the situation unfold right to their faces. Right there and then, they asked me to be their son's godmother. Edit. Thank you all so much for the rewards. Sorry for the confusion. I was not a nurse on duty during this story, not wearing any scrubs or uniform. English was only my 2nd language. It happened for real when I was still in the Philippines. I eventually ended up working in that hospital months after the incident. The audacity of someone to walk over to someone else's baby in the NICU and start messing with equipment in any way when they are not authorized to do so, that would, that's a whole lot of no. Oh my god. I don't care if you're a nursing student. Don't touch it. It's not yours to touch. Oh my god. Are you practicing here? Whoo! I'm glad she was able to stop her because, like, imagine she wasn't a nurse and this lady's like, I'm a nursing student, so I know what I'm doing, and just was allowed to continue doing random stuff to the equipment. Like, that's a little baby's life, okay? Like, the staff is there to take care of the baby. Like, that is not your business. Don't touch it. Like, focus on your own baby, okay? Okay. Steal my food and I'll make your tongue bleed. So, for context, I lived for many years in the British hostel system. Bedroom was mine, but everything else was communal. Obviously, you buy your own crap, right? Wrong. The main things disappearing was my whey protein, half a big tub, and my sugar. I don't mind people using my sugar, but I had seen him literally pour the sugar pot on his cereal. The top of his bowl looks like Christmas morning. I never caught him using my whey, but it became obvious when I looked in his pot of whey, still full, whilst mine was going down. My significant other was watching something to do with taste testing one day, and I heard something that pricked up my ears. Malic acid. For those unaware, malic acid is the sour stuff that looks like sugar on chewy sweets, and if consumed in high enough quantities, will make your tongue bleed. And with that, a plan was formed. It was a bit of a waste, and I asked my significant other first, but I dumped the entire 500-gram bag of malic acid into my whey and the sugar pot late one night. God, I wish I was an early riser to have seen this. But according to the other housemate, he complained about curdled milk. That'll be the protein. And after about half of his sugar-encrusted bowl of cereal, his tongue was bleeding. Happy Ninja Flip. I'm sorry, I'm kind of bad at storytelling. I'm not. Oh, how do you get that far though? Like, how do you like, there's the taste of sugar, and then there's the taste of the sour sugar stuff, the malic acid or whatnot. How would you be like just chilling through your bowl of cereal, your sour bowl of cereal, and like not be like, this is odd? That would freak me out so much too. Like that your tongue bleeds. No wonder. Yeah, that explains a lot actually. I like sour things, and let's just say there's a limit. There comes a limit. It just isn't pleasant to eat after a little too long, and perhaps that's why. Anyway, that's going to wrap up today's video. If you enjoyed it, go ahead and drop a like and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Really quickly, I'd like to thank my patrons. Up on the screen, you should see my face palmers and my crazy case. Thank you all so much for supporting me in that way. If you are interested in becoming a patron, checking out the original posts from today's video, or sending me an email for possible inclusion in a future video, all of that information is in the description box, so be sure to check it out. And I'll talk to you in my next video. Bye!